نتهم من جمع المال وجمع الملايين، من حرام أو من حلال من سئلانين.
All right, so inshallah ta'ala, tonight we're going to start talking about renting and hiring. That's the type of contract called in Arabic ijara. Ijara. It covers both of those, renting and hiring. We have a number of words here. What's meant by most of them is the same thing. Renting, hiring, leasing, employing. It's all the same. Yani, you can rent a house or rent a man. Yani, you can hire a man or hire a house. But depending on where you're from, you might use one of those two words in a more specific way usually. Like where I'm from, we wouldn't usually say hire a house. We'd say rent a house. And we wouldn't usually say rent a man, but I think you might say that you rent a man, but you'd say you hire a man. But really it's the same thing. So what is that? Renting and hiring is to transfer the ownership of a specific, usually sought transferable benefit. Not the item, the benefit. When you rent or hire, when you rent out to someone, what you're renting out is the benefit of the thing, not the thing itself. So, to transfer the ownership of a benefit. What type of benefit? A specific benefit, like living in a house, driving in a car. A usually sought benefit. What's a benefit that's usually sought? Like seeking a person to do labor, seeking a horse to ride it. What's not a usually sought benefit? Like renting an apple to sniff it. That's not a usually sought benefit. To rent an apple to sniff it. So take that example, the example of renting an apple just to sniff it, and then you think about many different types of deals that the kuffar do. If you have a rich person, he will pay for anything and do any type of contract with a person. Say, I'll pay you just to do this. In order for it to be valid, it has to be usually sought and transferable, a transferable benefit. What does that mean, transferable? That means it's permissible for you to let the other person use that benefit. What's an example of a benefit that you might have the right to, and it's not permissible for you to transfer the right of that benefit to someone else? Like if a man had a slave woman, it's not permissible to rent her out for sexual intercourse or for pleasure. It's not a transferable benefit. In easy terms, when you're renting and hiring, it's like you're temporarily purchasing a right. Temporarily purchasing a right. It's like you're saying to the person, I'll give you this much money and you will give me the right to drive your car for the next 7 days. After those 7 days are over, that right just is gone now. It's over. You don't have it anymore. The time is up. Poof, it's gone. You don't have that right anymore because renting and hiring is temporary and you must then return the item to its owner for a specific fee. Specific means known, a known fee. Even if the way you know it is just by pointing to it and saying this one here. Like, what if, for example, Hajj Kevin hired me to do work and the salary was a pile of wheat. A pile of wheat. He says, I will hire you for this pile of wheat. I might not even know what's the measure of that. How many kilos is that? I might have no idea, but I can see the pile. So that's enough to be a valid salary. Salary doesn't have to be cash money. Just like selling and buying is truly religiously, bartering, also renting. Yani the salary for renting and hiring can be just like when you're bartering. So you might hire someone for an amount of rice. That's the payment. That's valid. But it has to be specified. That means it has to be known. It has to be limited, something quantifiable. Therefore, the fee cannot be a percentage. Like, you can't pay the person a percentage of the yield. Like you say to him, I hire you to work this land and I give you such and such percentage of the fruits that come up. That's not valid because you don't know how many fruits are going to come. Could be a big amount, could be a small amount. If your percentage is 50%, for example, but a small amount of fruits come out, then you might be disappointed. Why would you be disappointed? Because you would hope that you would get more. How is it that you would hope that you would get more? It must have been, if you hoped to get more, it must have been that your payment was not specified. How could you hope to get more and your payment is specified? Same thing if you got more than you hoped. What if the agreement was half of the yield and then there was a lot of fruits that came out and you got way more than you hoped? That's evidence that you didn't do your contract for a specific fee. So the fee cannot be a percentage. That's not valid. It needs to be something specified and known, determined. Nor can the fee be being fed and clothed. Like you say to him, you will work this house. You will be the handyman for this house. And the salary is that you can live here. And you can eat from the food that grows in the yard. That's your salary. That's not valid. That the salary is being fed and clothed. That's not valid. Also, when it comes to renting and hiring, be mindful to separate the prices of parts and labor. The prices of parts and labor. What's meant by labor? That's clear. Labor means the work. So if you are a painter, then there's labor involved. You're going to be painting a wall. If you are a welder, then you're going to be working with metal. There's labor involved. If you are a mechanic, there's labor involved. But sometimes there's also parts involved. So if you're a painter, you might say, well, who's going to provide the paint? Me or you? You're going to hire me just for my labor, or you want my paint also? So you need to separate the price between, you need to separate the price of parts and labor. Be hired for your labor and sell the parts. Two different contracts. Now, it's valid for you to mention both of those prices in one statement as long as they're separated. Like you say, the price for my labor is such and such. The price for the parts is such and such. The total is this. That's valid. Hakatha. And that's easy, by the way, brothers and sisters. Some of you might make these things harder than they need to be. All you have to do is just state clearly what it is that you want. You say to your customer, my work costs this much, my paint costs this much. That's it. The total is this. There's nothing hard about that. Someone might hear that and he might say, is there another saying? Khalas yani. Now, there are two types of renting and hiring. One is leasing a specific thing. That's called ijaratu ayn. Ijaratu ayn. Ayn means a thing itself. So leasing a specific thing, which means renting it. Renting a specific thing, like a car. Say, I rent this car from you, a specific one. Or employing a specific person. You say, I hire you to paint this wall. You're going to be the one who paints this wall. That's called ijaratu ayn. Renting or hiring a specific person or thing. This is valid when one can easily benefit from that person or thing immediately after the contract. Meaning, this is very simple concept. When you rent something from someone, why should he take your money and not hand over to you what you're renting? Like if someone says, I rent this house to you, now we're going to do the contract. Let's get together on Friday. We'll do the contract on Friday and you can move in on Monday. Why? What's the point of that? And I'm actually genuinely curious about that. What in their claim is the point of renting something to someone, like getting together to do the contract on one day and then actually submitting the house, for example, on another day? So that's not fair. Why should you take my money now and I don't take the house now? Why? How is it that you get to take my money now and I don't get to take your house now? So religiously, that's a no-go. You can't make that a condition. Rather, remember, when you hire or rent, just like when you, just by doing the contract, both sides deserve what is agreed upon. Both sides deserve whatever's agreed upon immediately by the contract. What's the point of a contract and it's not valid yet? Just like we said before, can you sell something to someone and it's not theirs yet? Like you say, well, you pay me now, it'll become yours on Monday. No, you don't even conceive that. That's a pretty stupid idea. Just the idea of selling something to someone, but it's not theirs yet. Likewise, could you marry someone and that's not your spouse yet? You do the marriage contract on Friday, that doesn't become your spouse until Monday. You don't even conceive of something like that. You say, we just did the contract, khalas. Now we're married. Or we just did the contract, khalas, it's mine now. Same thing for renting and hiring. When that person pays you, then whatever it is you're renting out to them is theirs immediately. Or let me not say when they pay you. That's not even the best way to say it. When you do the contract, then whatever you're renting out to them is theirs immediately. Or else, if you want to think about it, if it's not theirs immediately, it's like you're saying, we're doing an invalid contract right now. This contract's not valid right now. It'll become valid later. It's not valid now. So if someone doesn't accept that whatever is being rented out becomes the right of the tenant immediately, then it's like that one is saying, it's okay to do an invalid contract. When I do my contract on Friday, it won't take effect until Monday. That means, that's another way of saying, it's not valid until Monday. It's invalid. Our current contract is invalid. So, you know how wrong that is. So one has to be able to immediately benefit after the contract, yani by the contract. For upfront payment or delayed payment, we're still talking about ijaratu ayn, renting or hiring a specific one or a specific thing. For upfront or delayed payment, what does that mean? It means when you're hiring in this type of ijara, then when do you have to pay whenever you agreed on? Did you agree on upfront payment? Or did you agree on delayed payment? Like, for example, what if Hajj Kevin hired me and he said, I hire you to do this work for this pile of wheat to be paid next week. Not now. That's valid. Now, what about what I just started talking about? Is there a contradiction here? There's no contradiction here. Why? Because by the contract you have agreed, you chose to agree to delay when you're going to pay him. So in order for you to even choose that means that he deserved something already. So it's still there. What we're saying is consistent. He had to have deserved something in the first place in order for you to be able to agree with him that you'll pay him later. So by doing the contract immediately, both sides have a right. Both sides have a right immediately. It's not the case that you do the renting or hiring contract, but not everybody has a right yet. The one side, the guy who has the house, he takes the money and he has a right, but not you. So for upfront or for delayed payment, if they do not specify, it is due on demand. If they don't specify, is it going to be paid upfront or is it going to be paid later, then it's due on demand. Now, this is the way it's worded here in English. It's due on demand. That means when the person asks for it. But how do they say it in the Arabic? They say ta'ajjalat. It's due immediately. But what that means is this, what I just said to you. It means it's due when the person asks for it. If you don't specify. Like what? What's similar to that? Anyone know before I tell you? Can anyone tell me what's a similar case when, if you don't specify when it's due, it will be due when it's requested. It will be due upon demand. 10. 9. The dowry. Yes. Barakallahu fikum. Hakadha. So you marry a woman. She deserves her dowry by doing the marriage contract. So you might agree that she gets paid immediately, or she gets paid later, or you might not agree at all to anything in particular. I mean, you might not just agree to anything at all, not specify. I mean, she still gets her dowry because it comes along with the marriage contract. So since you didn't specify with her when you're going to pay her, then when does she deserve her dowry? Whenever she asks for it. It's due on demand, if you're able. All right, you have a question, but I want to ask a bonus question really quick. Bonus question for dua. Who answers this question, inshallah, we ask Allah Ta'ala to give that one an answered dua. So the question is, give me another instance, one more, in which if you don't specify, then it's due on demand. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Repayment of a loan. haven't heard about that. Advance payment sale. That's correct answer. That's a correct answer. Advance payment sale according to Ash-Shafi'i. I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. We ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to grant Ahmad Muhammad, who answered this question correctly and accepted dua. Allahumma, oh Allah, answer this person's dua. Ameen. According to Ash-Shafi'i, the advance payment sale, so really quick, what's that? Remember, Ameen Wafiq, remember that salam, advance payment sale, so one side has to pay up front, the other side pays later because it's delayed, it's advance payment, so someone has to pay later. So according to Ash-Shafi'i, it's just like what we're talking about now. This delivery that's supposed to come later. Either you specify when you're going to get that delivery or not. Other scholars, they said you have to specify. Ash-Shafi'i said you don't have to. Just like these, you don't have to specify. So if you don't specify, then when is your delivery due according to Ash-Shafi'i? Upon demand. If you're able, you have to give it to him when he asks for it. So that's the judgment of the salary for renting a specific thing or hiring a specific person. If you don't specify when payment is due, then payment is due upon demand. Any question? Oh wait, there was a question. You said, how about reserving a rental car to get it at a specific time? Here you have to pay in advance, but if you canceled, you can get back your money before the specific time comes. We're going to mention that according to Abu Hanifa, with the kuffar you can. In the kafir land, with the kuffar you can. We'll come to that in a moment, insha'Allah ta'ala. Now, what's the other type of renting and hiring? What has been coined here as independent contracting. The meaning of independent contracting in Arabic is called ijaratu dhimma. So it's not really a translation of the Arabic words. Ijaratu dhimma. Ijaratu dhimma means to hire a person's account, almost. Something like that. To hire his account. Not to hire him. You put something in his account that he has to fulfill. So it means basically you're not hiring him to do the work personally. You're hiring him to complete a task for you, to get it done. And here that's being coined as independent contracting. What that means is you're hiring him to get the job done. If you're doing that, then you can't be putting him under someone else. You can't be putting him under someone else, say, all right, I hire you to get this done and you need to work under this guy of mine. That doesn't work. So when you hire the person in this way to get the job done, then he's his own boss. And he gets the job done for you. He might have people working under him, but you can't put someone over him. Then he can get that job done himself or by someone else. They say in Arabic, alzamtu dhimmataka. It means I bind to your account. Something like that. It's not, I don't find it very easy to translate it into English. This type of deal requires an upfront payment, nothing else. The options that we just talked about, upfront or delayed or due upon demand, none of that applies in this case. Or else it will be a debt for a debt. Why? Because when you hire a person to get something done for you, then now he owes you. So that's a debt. So you need to pay him now. It's like an advanced payment sale. You need to pay him now. He owes you. He has to deliver. But not deliver goods. It's not really a sale. This is a hiring. Which is whatever is that task that you need completed. He owes you that. That has to be delivered. So you have to pay him up front. Or else, if you don't pay him up front, then you owe him too. Now you owe him and he owes you, and that's a debt for a debt. And that's haram, and that's invalid. طيب. According to the Hanafis, one can rent or hire a confirmed future benefit. That's what you were just asking about, sister. In a non-Muslim land from a non-Muslim. The deal, meaning the renting and or the hiring, must be either for a specified time, like lodging, or a job, a specified job, like making Hajj for someone. The time or the job. Lodging, that means providing someone with a place to live. Lodging can only be measured by time. So there's nothing else to base the contract on. Making Hajj can only be measured by the job itself. So you don't measure it by time. So the deal must either be for a specific time or a specific job. Then one deserves his salary based on the time, even if the job is incomplete, or based on the job, regardless of the time that it took. So, if you hired him for the time, you say to him, I hire you for 8 hours. Okay. So then you tell him, all right, now go paint that wall. So what if he painted the wall in 2 hours? Okay. You didn't hire him for the task, you hired him for the time. So you still have 6 more hours. Yani, he's still yours for 6 hours. You have a right over him. You hired him. He's not a slave, of course. But you have a right over him now. And he owes you. So then you tell him, rake these leaves, take out this trash, etc., etc. You hired him for the time, not for the job. On the other hand, you might hire a person for the job, not for the time. So he might finish that job in record speed. You don't say, you did it too fast. Nope. He finished the job, and you hired him for the job, then you pay him for the job. Now, if it can go either way, whatever it is you want to do the contract on, like stitching, like you could say to him, I hire you for 8 hours, now go stitch. That's what I want you to do. That's all I want you to do. Sit in that chair and get busy. Or you might say to him, I hire you to stitch this. I want a shirt, for example. That's the job. So you can do it either way. So then in this case, you have to choose one way or the other. Either hire by the time or hire for the job, but you cannot mix them. You cannot say, I hire you to complete this task in such and such time. That's invalid. Invalid. You said, can you dismiss him if you don't need him after the job? When you say after the job, what do you mean? Dismiss him when? Yani. You still owe him. Renting and hiring is binding. Like, if you hired me, Abdul Qawi, if you hired me for $10 per hour for 10 hours. So after 10 hours, you're going to owe me $100. And then I worked for 8 hours and you didn't need me anymore. And then you said, look, bro, I don't need you anymore. We're good to go. You can go home now. I can say to you, okay, can I have my $100, please? Can I have my $100, please? You cannot say to me, but you didn't work for that time, because I'm going to say to you, but you hired me for that time and I agreed. So you want me to just hang around or what? I can hang around if you want. I can do something for you. What you need? You want me to go wipe your windows down? Or if you want, you can just pay me what you owe me and we'll call it a day. So that's clear. Or I can pardon you. After 8 hours and you say there's nothing left, you might say to me, can you pardon me for the extra $20? And I can say yes or no. So that's clear. Question, what options does one have if they hired someone to do a task and a year passes and they still didn't complete it, they only did a bit, then stopped coming? Then you only have to pay them for the worth of the work they did. The answer for that's going to come inshallah ta'ala. So let me keep going. So the deal must be for a specified time or a specified job, and then the person deserves to be paid according to that. If it can go either way, then you have to choose one or the other. It is valid to base the salary on each completed unit, meaning it's valid to hire someone and say to him, for every shirt you complete, I hire you to complete a shirt for $10. And for every shirt you complete, you get $10. That's valid. And it's valid to be a broker, meaning to bring customers, to find customers for someone, to be hired to find customers. That's valid. Yeah. So let's say, for example, I had a box of masks. I have 50 masks in that box. And I say to you, Abdul Qawi, I hire you to sell these masks. There's 50 masks in this box. I want $50. You come back to me with $50. Whatever you make beyond $50 is yours. So you want to sell those masks for $1 a piece and give me my 50 and keep nothing? That's your business. You want to sell them for $2 a piece? Give me 50 and keep 50? Whatever. I don't care what you do. Just give me my 50 and leave me alone. According to Ash-Shafi'i, that's not valid. But according to Malik, it is valid. According to Malik, you can agree to that. Take my box of masks, sell them for as much as you can, give me my $50 and keep whatever profits you get. The religion affords the employee time for purification, obligatory prayer, and the associated sunnah prayers. So you need to let him make wudu, let him pray with the sunnahs of the prayer, not just only the obligatory parts, and do some sunnahs too. That's valid, that's permissible. Yani he has that right. Allah granted him that. Of course, not in a way that takes long time, just normal 2 rak'ahs, for example. Hiring invalidly requires repentance. If you hire someone in an invalid way, like hiring indefinitely, to be hired indefinitely, for it to be said, I'll pay you such and such per month, without saying how many months. So now you don't know how much you're going to get paid. Why you don't know how much you're going to get paid? Because remember, Renting and hiring is temporary. You need to be able to know exactly what you're going to get paid. Or like if they mixed between the time and the job. They mixed the time and the job in one contract. Now it's not valid. So hiring invalidly requires repentance. And if the job is done, a commensurate salary is due. If the job is done, a commensurate salary is due. That means you pay him what the job is worth. Not what you agreed on. Not what you agreed on. If it's an invalid hiring, and then the person actually completed the work, then he deserves what that job is worth on the market. It could be worth more than what you agreed on. It could be worth less than what you agreed on. Or it might be worth exactly what you agreed on. But your agreement doesn't mean anything if the contract is not valid. Then you pay him whatever that job was worth on the market. Once the contract is done, the salary cannot be changed. That's something people do a lot. They do the contract, then they come back later and say, oh, unexpected things popped up. That's your problem. Keeping these rules in mind, then make sure that you get, when you bargain, when you negotiate, get what you need to get out of that negotiation. And as the Muslim with these rules, these special rules, these blessed rules, and this good knowledge that gives you a great advantage, and also with a strong heart and the confidence that the religion gives you, the strong heart, the strength that you have in your heart, and you look that person that you're dealing with right in his eyes, and you negotiate, and you stand up for yourself, man or woman, of course. Once the contract is done, the salary cannot be changed. So negotiate for all what you want. And if you take a loss, then you just took a loss and you complete your contract anyway because of the honor of being a Muslim. And the closer one comes to completing the task or the time, the more he deserves the commensurate salary until completing his end of the bargain. Until completing his end of the bargain. This is the answer for the question posed there. What options does one have if they hired someone to do a task and a year passes and they still didn't complete it? So, you want to hire someone for a job. This is what you can do. Not for the time, but for the job. Firstly, you agree that you're not going to pay him everything up front. If that's not somebody you know and you can vouch for his integrity, then you pay that stranger everything up front. If it were me, I would expect to get burnt, as they say. Don't do that probably with someone you don't know. If it's someone you know and you trust, go ahead and pay him all up front. If you don't trust him, don't start paying him everything up front. You don't know him. And remember what's your right religiously. Your right is that he deserves everything upon completing the task. What does he deserve in the meantime? In the meantime, he deserves what that job is worth on the market. Not what you agreed to. He doesn't deserve what you agreed to until he completes the task. Unless, of course, you agreed to pay him up front everything. So, he deserves everything when he completes the task. Until then, he deserves what his work is worth on the market. So he starts his work. You hired him for the task, not for the time. He starts his work. The more and more he completes that work, the closer he gets to completing that work, the more and more he deserves, because the whole time he deserves what his work is worth on the market, not what you agreed on. Until he completes the job. When he completes the job, then he deserves whatever it was that you agreed on. So if it's been a year and he hasn't done everything, you can say to him, listen, man, this work you did is worth this much. If he says, well, but we agreed on, okay. We didn't agree on the time, okay. We didn't agree on the time. That's true. And renting and hiring is binding. You can't fire me. Okay, that's true. I can't fire you either. But also, you don't deserve everything until you complete the task. Until then, you only deserve what your work is worth on the market. So you want all your money, get the job done. That's clear? You said, how do bonuses factor in the hiring? You need to be more specific for me because hiring is very straightforward, which is what? One side has a task, the other side has a price. So there's your hiring. So beyond that, you need to elaborate more on your question. Because in the first place, when you say, how do bonuses factor in the hiring? In the first place, is the hiring valid? Meaning, if he does his job, is his price known? Does he know exactly what he's supposed to get paid in the first place? If not, then you didn't even get past the first problem, which is a valid contract. So you can't even think about a bonus yet. You don't even have a valid contract. So you need to have a valid contract in the first place, which is that your salary is known. Completely known. The complete salary is known. Remember, when you get hired or when you rent, you want to be able to complete the contract. You need to complete the contract. So you need to elaborate for that. You said a valid contract is there, i.e. there's a bonus for making innovative products. The bonus serves as a form of compensation for their effort and will be a percentage of the yielded result. So it's a gift. That's fine. It's a gift for doing good work. That's fine. As long as the person has a known salary and a known task or time, then if they want to reward him for good work with gifts, that's fine. Is deposit valid? What do you mean by deposit? A deposit to rent something? Deposit is not valid. Deposit is not valid. Why? Because let's break it down. The person is renting a house to you for a fee, right? Yes. For a known fee, yes. طيب. So what's the deposit? It's basically, usually it's going to be insurance. They want some upfront money before they actually, this is how it usually goes. They want some upfront money now without giving you anything before you even move into the house. Is that money part of the rent? They do some different things like that sometimes. Sometimes they might say it'll go to the last month or... But no, anyway, no, it's not valid. Because what is it? It's usually going to be insurance. So you give me a deposit just in case you break anything. What? That's also not fair. You mean just in case I break anything? What if you lose my money? Then what you going to do? How come I have to give you something and you don't have to give me something? Says, well, you got my house. Okay, I paid the rent. So why I have to pay the rent and give you something else too? And give you a deposit too? So that's not valid. So you have to find a way around that. If you're dealing with kuffar, I don't know how that would be valid with kuffar also. Because when you're dealing with kuffar, you have to win, not lose. So if you're giving them, when they say first month, last month, and deposit, and a lot of times, if not most of the times, they make that deposit the same amount as a month of rent. First month, last month, and deposit, like you're paying 3 months up front. But really it's only 2 months. And some money, they just hold it. And then they take that money and they mix it with their own money and they spend it. When they pay you your deposit back, they don't give you the same money back because they actually take your money and spend it. That's all invalid. A deposit does not become the ownership of the one who takes it. They take that deposit and they keep it like their own money, and then they consume that money. That's haram. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best.
عمر الإنسان